All of the reporters' eyes darted fearfully between the locked door of the conference room and Olivia Johnson. Everyone was stunned that she had all of them trapped. No one had noticed anyone standing outside the door in order for it to slam shut. It was as if Olivia had made it close on cue with magic, but that was impossible. "Miss Johnson, what do you mean by nobody here can leave until we resolve this matter, however long it takes?" A female reporter asked Olivia with a look of growing horror in her eyes. "I thought I was very clear. In fact, you just repeated exactly what I said, so it seems you understand perfectly." Olivia raised an eyebrow and leaned back in her chair confidently. "None of you are leaving this room until we resolve this, and I really hope that happens today." Olivia shrugged nonchalantly. "That is what you said, Miss Johnson, but why are you keeping us here? We just came here to interview you and get the truth, plain and simple. It really should not take very long. I'm not sure why the locked door is entirely necessary." A male reporter explained while his voice shook slightly. "Okay, great. Let's have an interview then." Olivia smiled and pretended to play along. "I've got all day to spend with you guys. If that's not long enough to get the answers I'm looking for, I have tomorrow blocked off as well. It will be up to you how long this takes, really." "What are you trying to say here?" Another female reporter asked nervously. "Are you threatening us? What is this even about? We're supposed to be interviewing you." "I know. Isn't it wild how quickly things can change? And yes, in case you're still confused, I am threatening you," Olivia replied calmly, as if she had just answered what day of the week it was. "And aren't you worried that we will report on this? You're threatening a room full of reporters. It's what we do." The first reporter who had initially spoken up responded incredulously. The whole room could not believe how brazen Olivia was with this threat. "I mean, is what you're doing even legal? I don't think so." "I wouldn't worry about that just now. I'm not worried about it for what it's worth." Olivia sneered. "You can report whatever information you want to report after this. I honestly do not care." Everyone stared back at Olivia in shock. One reporter had already reached for their recording device and held it out to capture whatever happened next. "You can have your interview with me, but before we start, I'm conducting my interview of you first. So here's my question. This negotiation meeting is supposed to be completely private and confidential, and I even changed the time it would start to ensure that it would remain secret. How is it that you all still knew about the meeting and when to show up?" Olivia asked pointedly, raising her eyebrows. We always have our sources. It's standard procedure," the second female reporter said. In spite of her efforts to sound confident and matter-of-fact, she inadvertently glanced in the direction of Bert Albertson as she spoke before looking back at Olivia. "We just want to report the truth and that's it. There's nothing unusual about that." "Then we have that goal in common because I also want to find the truth here. I find it very odd that you all knew about this private meeting between my team and No World. I've been aware for some time that I have spies monitoring me. My next question is, how much did they pay you all so that you would participate in this dirty trick and show up at the private meeting unannounced? How much did it cost for you to leave your journalistic integrity at the door? And who paid you?" Olivia asked with a cold smile. All of the reporters remained silent. Olivia shrugged off the silence and continued. "Everyone has a price to start talking, and I'm sure you all have yours. I see this as a problem that can be solved in a similar way." Olivia paused and smiled at the reporters. "Lucky for all of us, I have what we need to resolve this. Whatever you're being paid to stay silent, I can double it. All you have to do is start answering my questions." The entire room was dumbfounded. They could believe that Olivia Johnson did not care if they wrote an article that exposed her outrageous, bold behavior. She only cared about finding out who sent them to the meeting that day. There was nothing more difficult than trying to bargain with a person who did not care about any of the consequences. Almost immediately, one of the reporters raised their hand and folded in defeat. "Miss Johnson, I beg you. I was just blinded by wanting more money temporarily, and it's not how I normally do things, I swear." He quickly pointed to Bert Albertson. "It's him. He is the one who tipped us off and offered us money to show up. It was all him." "No loyalty among thieves, I guess," Olivia thought to herself, satisfied. "Why, you little—" Bert Albertson shouted. He looked as though he was about to lunge for the reporter. But just before he could make a move, there was a knock at the door. Suddenly, the door opened and a man wearing a suit walked in. When Bert Albertson and Peter Ark saw who the man was, their expressions changed instantly from anger to shock. Bert Albertson jumped up. "You! It can't be!" "You thought I was dead, right?" the lawyer sneered. "Unfortunately for you, Miss Johnson rescued me and saved my life." There was a confused murmur from the reporters in the room. "You!" Peter Ark rounded on Olivia. When he met her eyes, he suddenly felt as though her gaze had pierced through him and all of her strength he had to lie was suddenly sucked right out of him. He sat back down into his chair at a loss for words. "Very good. There's no point in arguing. I know everything." Olivia turned to the reporters. "Would you like to ask him how their lawyer got trapped in a warehouse and left for dead? And how it was all set up to look like an accidental fire?" Olivia asked innocently. "The story is really interesting. You couldn't write a better movie." The male reporter recognized the lawyer. He looked at Bert Albertson and Peter Ark and could tell from their reactions that what Olivia said was true. He was completely stunned by the enormity of this story unfolding in front of them. The problem was, if he reported on it, he would be as good as dead thanks to Mr. Albertson and Mr. Ark. All of the other reporters knew it too. "What's wrong?" Olivia asked the reporter sarcastically. "Aren't you all interested in interviewing any of us now?" "No? What a shame, it's such a good story." She looked at Millie and Francis. "Let's go." She stood and locked her eyes onto Peter Ark and Bert Albertson. "I will investigate and prosecute your part in this to the full extent of the law," Olivia said in a calm but menacing voice. She turned and walked towards the door as Millie and Francis followed behind her. The crowd of reporters respectfully parted to clear a path for them. Just as Olivia was about to leave, she turned and looked back at the reporters. Her gaze landed on one of the female reporters and her eyes narrowed slightly. "You. I know you. I remember you wrote in a piece once that the person who is most feared in New York City is also the most powerful. Isn't that right?" The reporter stammered, and she defensively took a step back. Olivia rolled her eyes at the inarticulate reporter. "Listen up," she said to the rest of the room. "From today on, I am the most feared person in New York, so you all better think twice next time before you come for me." The reporters were silent with fear. The next day, there was not a word about the No World arson and attempted murder scandal, or anything else that happened in the negotiation. However, it was Olivia's declaration of being the most powerful person in New York that dominated the headlines of every newspaper. It was the talk of the town. "What?" Jessica Nevin exclaimed as she read the news. "Did she really say that?" Jake paced around the hallway of the hospital. "This is obviously Olivia's attempt to provoke us. We're the other most powerful business family in New York. She somehow thinks she's better than the Nevin family? Better than me?" Jake fumed. Jessica coldly glanced at Jake and frowned in disgust. "You don't need to pay attention to this matter. You should be focused on taking good care of your grandfather." "I know," Jake sighed. Internally, he was only pretending to cooperate with caring for his grandfather in order to look good. "Speaking of taking good care of Grandpa, I've been meaning to ask, since I have some important business on Sunday, can you take care of Grandpa for me just for a bit?" "I can," Jessica replied. "What important business is it?" "It has something to do with the Rose Company," Jake replied. "I will come back afterwards as soon as possible." "All right, just don't cause any trouble," Jessica warned. Jake smiled confidently. "Don't worry, I have a plan." At last, Olivia had won justice for Confluence against No World, and after so much chaos, there was finally peace for the company and her friends. Confluence joined forces with the park company as well as the Jarbaldi business to legally hold No World responsible with the evidence they had against them, and they successfully sued No World. The story circulating in public shifted from Confluence plagiarizing in their game design to No World being the real plagiarism offender. The flipped script captivated everyone following along in the business world. In addition to the copyright violation, Bert Albertson and Peter Ark were eventually tried for fraud, falsifying evidence, and obstruction of justice. The court handed down guilty verdicts for each of them, and they were sentenced to 15 years in prison. They were completely disgraced. Confluence maintained the rights to their game design and definitively won their case in the eyes of the law and the gaming industry. Not only did they defeat No World's false claims, but Confluence's legal victory sent a clear message that any other would-be plagiarizers should think twice. Anyone infringing on Confluence's proprietary games would be swiftly annihilated in court. The founders really meant business, and everyone knew it. Olivia was very pleased with the way things worked out for Confluence. Once the professional chaos had finally calmed down a bit, for the first time in a long time, Olivia finally felt that she had a moment to breathe a sigh of relief and relax. Morgana seized the lull in activity as an opportunity to finally drag Olivia to see the doctor. And Olivia had to keep her pinky promise. She cooperated without a fight. Olivia underwent a series of examinations and reviewed all of her odd symptoms. She did not want to alarm the doctor. The last thing she needed was for any of her friends or family to worry about her more than they already did. But she also knew it was important to be honest. The doctor ran a series of tests and reviewed the results with Olivia. He held up the data from the tests and frowned, deep in thought. "Tell me again, Miss Johnson, how long have you been feeling the intense fatigue? And when did you start experiencing the fainting spells? Losing consciousness?" "It has not been that long," Olivia replied. "Maybe a little over 4 months." "I see. I would call that more than not that long." The doctor raised a disapproving eyebrow. "Why is it that you are only just getting in to see a doctor now? That is a long time to be experiencing those concerning symptoms." Olivia heard the tone of the doctor's voice and realized the seriousness of the problem for the first time. She had been so determined to ignore her symptoms, and admittedly felt somewhat bulletproof ever since she had had a second chance at life with supernatural powers. What if I'm not so immune after all? Olivia thought with the first hint of concern. What if I made a mistake putting off coming to the doctor this long? What if Morgana was right? Morgana took Olivia's hand in hers and squeezed it. "I knew it. I knew it ever since this whole thing started. Something is wrong with Olivia. Her body is not right," she exclaimed. She was vindicated, but also not happy to be right. "What's wrong with her?" "Doctor, just give it to me straight, please. I don't want to drag this out any more than you do," Olivia said. She found herself surprisingly calm in spite of the grim tone in the room. "I admit that I am surprised by what I'm seeing in your results, Miss Olivia. I would not expect to see this kind of condition in someone your age. But looking at all of the data we have and what I've learned about your demanding, grueling lifestyle lately, I'm starting to see a clearer picture," the doctor explained. He sighed deeply. "I'm ready to diagnose you with chronic kidney disease that has been caused by high blood pressure. Probably from all of the stress from work, school, and all of your other commitments, as well as poor nutrition. You are barely eating due to your busy schedule and not getting what you need. Frankly, you are malnourished. In order to get a more detailed sense of your condition, we'll need you to do some tests, but there is a possibility that you will need a kidney transplant." Olivia could barely understand the words that came out of the doctor's mouth. All she could hear was a distant buzzing in her ears. What is he saying? She wondered to herself. Remove the kidney? Everything in the room around her was suddenly in slow motion. Morgana's face instantly drained of any color. She had suspected something was wrong with Olivia's health, but she was still a little stunned by the doctor's serious diagnosis. It was even worse than she had imagined. "I'm going to lose a kidney?" Olivia asked in shock. "It would be a transplant, not just losing one kidney. We'll ensure that you still have two. We'll just need to find a donor," the doctor explained patiently. It was not the first time he had to deliver this kind of upsetting news in his career, but he never thought he would be delivering this information to Olivia Johnson, the youngest and most famous businesswoman in New York. He looked up to Olivia. "We should start testing family members to see if there are any donor matches." Olivia snapped back into focus at the mention of her family. She frowned at the doctor. "This whole situation cannot leave this room. I don't want anyone to know about this, especially anyone in my family." This can't be happening, Olivia thought. For the first time in a long time, she felt scared. Not for herself, but for how it might affect her parents. Her friends and my enemies absolutely cannot find about this either, Olivia thought darkly. It would put everyone she cared about in jeopardy if the people who were after her knew she had any weakness. I didn't just run myself ragged and possibly cost myself a kidney doing it, just so I could destroy my hard-won status in New York City. Right now, I need to keep this under wraps, or else the entire dynamic of the business world in this town could completely flip. What if the financial market does completely collapse after all, just like it did in my previous life? That is what is going to happen if I'm not in charge. Olivia felt her heart beating rapidly in her chest. Everyone needs me. I cannot allow this to happen. I will not. I will not lose everything I worked so hard to get. I did not die once and go through all of this for nothing. Olivia reeled internally. Damn it. How could this happen right now? This is the absolute worst time, just when I've come out on top. I should have listened to Morgana. She's going to have a fit that I need a new kidney. Olivia rubbed her temples as she tried to quiet her frantic mind. After a moment, she was ready to speak. If at all possible, I don't want to be treated in the hospital, Olivia explained. I would prefer to be treated at home. Specialized in-home caregivers or doctors, whatever I'll need. I can recreate whatever resources they need. This needs to be a very private operation. What? The doctor asked, stunned. In his entire career, it was the first time he had heard a patient make such a request. It sounded like something the president or a member of the British royal family might do. But someone in America. He wondered if this was the trend for millionaires to have their own surgical centers at home. Olivia, what are you talking about? Morgana impatiently placed her hand on Olivia's arm. Listen to me, you are sick, okay? You need serious medical attention from the hospital, not some mobile service. They know what they're doing. Morgana was so worried in her heart for Olivia that she could barely string coherent sentences together. She knew that if something bad happened to Olivia, well, she did not know what she would do. Right now, I can't let anyone find out about my condition. It's terrible timing, Olivia said as she placed her hand on Morgana's arm comfortingly. Please don't worry, I won't do anything crazy. I just need to keep the procedure secret. Olivia looked at Morgana and knew she had to do this the right way. She could not outsmart kidney disease. Not listening to Morgana is what got me into this mess in the first place, Olivia remembered. She sighed deeply. I'll go and have the procedure at the hospital, okay? I'll do whatever you tell me I need to do to successfully treat my condition. But whatever you do, please just help me keep it a secret. No one can know about this, she pleaded. It seems that it would be unlikely there isn't anyone that hasn't noticed you already here at this office, the doctor pointed out. Olivia, don't mess around with this. I know you don't want people to find out, but you need the doctor's attention to be on you. I'm not trying to manage secrecy, Morgana insisted, her voice trembling slightly. If the outside world knows that I am really ill, all of New York City will fall into chaos. It's really important that I don't let this happen. I have the eyes of the whole city on me right now, especially Beatrix Cooper's and Mark DeLillo's. And of course the Kong family from the 7 big families is just waiting to pounce too. Maybe I need to fake some other excuse for why I'm in the hospital. Something that doesn't make me seem weak. Olivia schemed in desperation. If any of the wrong people find out I'm sick, everything I have worked so hard to fix will be in jeopardy. Olivia was still reeling from her diagnosis. Chronic kidney disease. I got so used to feeling unstoppable with my powers, but never considered a regular old disease might be the thing to get in my way. If anyone asks why I was here, or if my parents ask how it went, you have to tell them that I'm just getting a suspicious mole removed, okay? They can't know about the kidney thing. It's very important. Olivia urged Morgana. Olivia was then taken to another part of the hospital for more testing. While Morgana anxiously awaited for Olivia to be done with the tests, Victoria and Michael arrived at the hospital looking concerned. Morgana, what is going on? Victoria asked Morgana, who paced back and forth outside the exam room. Nothing serious, Morgana stammered. The doctor thought that Olivia had a mole that looked a little suspicious or something, like, could be a problem down the road, I guess, so they went to remove it now. Huh, Victoria responded. She was not entirely satisfied by this answer. Ever since that morning, she felt very uneasy in her heart, and her eye had begun to twitch from the stress. She was very worried that something bad was going to happen to Olivia. Michael did not say anything. He looked at Morgana and carefully analyzed her body language while he mulled what she said about a suspicious mole. He felt that something else was going on, but was not sure what. Morgana felt increasingly uncomfortable under Michael's suspicious stare. She turned her head away so that she felt less pressure to meet his skeptical eyes. She pursed her lips in frustration. It wasn't fair that Olivia asked her to lie to her parents and everyone, but it was difficult to stay mad at her when Morgana was so worried about her. Morgana wanted to tell Olivia off for not taking better care of herself. Morgana had tried harder than anyone to get Olivia to listen to her body and not overdo it, but she never listened. Morgana comforted herself by promising that when Olivia eventually improved after receiving treatment, she would scare Olivia with dozens of insects to teach her a lesson. A couple hours later, Olivia returned from her additional test and was moved back to her original exam room where Morgana, Victoria, and Michael waited. Victoria sat next to Olivia on the exam bed and held her hand. Morgana stood by the window and looked out into the distance. She was still mad at Olivia for getting them into this situation, but she cooperated with covering for her by remaining silent. Michael sat in a chair off to the side and looked at Olivia, then at Morgana. His expression was silent and serious as he tried to read their behavior. Something was off. Mom, I'm fine. Olivia smiled. The skin biopsy is just a precaution. I always told you to use sunscreen, Victoria gently chastised. She did not want to be too harsh because she knew it would only make things worse. She stood up and asked, Are you hungry? I can go find some food to bring back. Mom, you're in way worse shape than me with your leg. Don't be silly. Olivia squeezed Victoria's hand. When I'm hungry, I'll have Morgana go. You should go home and rest. I'm fine. This is going to be so uneventful. Violet Cartwright walked in after knocking on the door. How are you doing, Miss Olivia? I'm fine. They just wanted to take a biopsy of a mole, Olivia said breezily. Morgana glanced at Olivia. She didn't think it was wise to keep the truth from Violet and hoped that Olivia would tell her at some point. News that you're in the hospital is spreading already. All of New York is talking about it, Violet reported. Olivia rolled her eyes. Of course it has. Violet nodded. You just relax. Jeff and I can handle everything at the company. You can start spreading the news that I only had a small routine procedure. I just need to wear a bandage and not get it wet. Pretty easy stuff. I'm going to take all of your advice and take a break, Olivia said as she stretched her arms. It's about time, miss. Violet nodded. You have been working too hard for too long. You get maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night and you never eat when you should either. No one could possibly keep that up forever, nor should they. I certainly couldn't. You need a good rest. Olivia smiled. Violet, did you drive here? Could you take my parents back home? Olivia, Victoria protested. She did not want to leave, even though she had to admit there was really nothing she could do to be helpful. All right, Victoria sighed. You guys go ahead and go home. I still have some work things I need to run by Olivia, nothing crazy, Michael said. Victoria frowned slightly. The last thing Olivia needed was the temptation of more work. She was just like her father. Well, hurry up, she needs to rest. I know, Michael assured. We'll see you at home, I guess, Victoria said reluctantly to Morgana. See you later, Morgana said a bit sadly. Olivia raised her eyebrows at Morgana, trying to remind her to cover her sullen mood better. She knew Morgana liked her mom very much. My mom is the last person Morgana wants to lie to. Maybe only other than me. Olivia sighed in her own mind. After Victoria and Violet left, the room quieted down. Once he was sure that they had left, Michael looked directly into Olivia's eyes. Tell me, what exactly is going on? Olivia smiled confidently. Dad, what are you talking about? Don't try to pretend like everything is fine. Michael frowned. I'm your dad. You can't hide stuff from me. Olivia laughed dryly. I guess you do know me. Michael did not find it funny. What is it? It's not that bad, Olivia said. She tried to sound as calm as possible. The doctor said I work too hard and put too much stress on my kidneys. They need to investigate more, but I might need a new kidney. Michael's face darkened and he clenched his fists at his sides. Dad, relax. It's not as serious as it sounds. Olivia smiled. How can you smile at a time like this? Michael looked at Olivia and he felt frustrated and guilty. He knew she was an amazing daughter, but no one had kidney disease at her age. She must have become sick from working too hard while she was still so young. When he looked at her face, he felt his heart ache. You don't need to downplay what you're going through. You know it would be bad for the company if everyone knew the truth. Olivia shrugged. She stopped smiling. That is the most important thing. No one can know about my illness. Michael did not know what to say, but he knew she was right. If people knew that Olivia had any kind of weakness, it would throw the entire New York business world into chaos. What do you need me to do? Michael asked. I just need you to help keep my secret from everyone, Olivia said. Michael looked at his daughter for a moment. He knew it would be hard to keep something like this from Victoria, but he understood that this was his daughter's choice. He nodded his head and gave Olivia's hand a squeeze. Morgana had been stewing about what to say to Olivia once they were alone again. But after Michael left, she saw that Olivia looked so sad and could not bring herself to do it. What are you sad for? Morgana pouted and muttered. Is it the pain in your stomach? It does hurt, Olivia nodded, but that's not why I'm sad. Seeing my parents be so worried about me, that one hurts way more, Olivia thought. Still, she knew she had no other options. If I don't make the necessary sacrifices to keep this a secret, the truth would only put them in danger. So many of my enemies would try to kill them just to destroy me. I'll take kidney disease and everyone being upset with me over that scenario any day. I can't believe you, Morgana said in a low, wounded voice. There were tears in her eyes. You wouldn't listen to me and now you're... Why are you crying? It's going to be fine. Olivia tried to reassure her friend. Just then, Morgana's phone rang. Hello? Morgana answered the phone through her tears. Are you crying? What's wrong? The male voice on the other end asked. Olivia is in the hospital, Atticus, Morgana cried. Don't worry, Brent is with me. We'll head over right away. Send me the address, Atticus said as he glanced at a worried Brent. Okay, Morgana nodded tearfully and hung up. She wiped at her eyes as she sent them the address. Suddenly, Dr. Lin entered Olivia's room and quickly closed the door behind him. We have your results. How bad is it? Morgana jumped up and asked. It's as I expected. You will need surgery. Dr. Lin said to Olivia. All right, Olivia sighed, accepting the news. When it's time, please make sure everyone in the operating room knows that this has to be top secret. I will pay them all very handsomely for their silence. Dr. Lin felt a little surprised by Olivia's unemotional reaction. He found it a bit unsettling, but he also respected her bravery for someone so young. He could see why the media made such a big deal about her after all. She lived up to her reputation. We'll do our very best to meet your needs. Dr. Lin nodded. Thank you. Olivia nodded. Just then, the door to the room opened again and 3 men poked their heads in. Atticus! Brent! Morgana exclaimed. It was the first time she had sounded happy all day. Yes, we're here, Brent said as they walked in. Olivia looked up at the 3 men who entered and smiled. But as soon as she saw who the 3rd man was, her jaw dropped in surprise. Olivia's shocked face broke into a wide grin at the man that walked into her hospital room. Sven, you're back! Liv, what happened to you? Sven frowned at Olivia. He knew that if Chris were there to see this, he would freak out. Thinking about Chris made Sven extremely distressed. His trip to Europe had been futile. Chris Jones was nowhere to be found. Sven felt guilty as he looked at Olivia's smiling face. Olivia turned to Dr. Lin. Doctor, let's discuss the rest later. Dr. Lin nodded, remembering their agreement about discretion. He turned and promptly left. Hang on just a moment, Brent said as he reached out to the doctor. May I see her chart? Dr. Lin looked to Olivia for approval and she nodded. He handed Olivia's chart to Brent and walked out. Brent looked over Olivia's chart and frowned. He raised his eyebrows as he read and glanced at Olivia from head to toe with a suspicious look on his face. What does it say? Morgana asked nervously. She could not stand waiting any longer. She's not going to die if that's what you're worried about. It's not serious enough for that. Brent looked up and said. Morgana let out a long sigh of relief. That's good. Well, it's still not good, Brent corrected. Morgana felt her heart rise in her throat again. What's not good? Why is it not good? Can we all just say all the information, please? She's going to need kidney surgery, but human kidneys have regenerative capabilities, so it's not the worst situation, Brent explained. The problem is that it's not just her kidney that's in trouble. Her heart is under a lot of stress and her overall health is terrible. If she continues much more of this, it won't be long before her heart can't take it anymore. What? Morgana asked and drew in a sharp breath. She knew Brent was the best medical expert there was. There was no chance that he was wrong, which meant Olivia was very at risk. You're only 18 years old. Brent looked at Olivia and slightly narrowed his eyes. How did you end up like this? I don't know, Olivia shrugged. During this second chance at life, she put herself under tremendous pressure, and she had her reasons that she felt she had to see it through without rest. Maybe it had something to do with that, Olivia thought dryly. It's not too late to reverse course. Just make some better lifestyle changes, Brent said. He was glad the case was so straightforward. He saw Morgana's teary eyes and added, Get more sleep and proper nutrition. Rest up, you're a strong person, you just need to apply that to your self-care now. There really isn't much more to it than that. Morgana felt some comfort in Brent's simple remedies, and she looked at Olivia with a new sense of determination. She would make sure that Olivia lived a long life and nothing would stop her. Morgana clenched her fist tightly and her eyes lit up with resolve. Olivia felt a chill down her spine. Why do I have a bad feeling about this? She wondered. So it's not so bad then? Sven said hopefully. Yeah. Brent scratched his head. He had tried to put the most positive spin on the situation in order to not scare Morgana too much. Remember, if anyone asks, the story is I'm just here for a routine thing, Olivia said firmly. I'm getting a mole removed, that's all. Sven and Brent exchanged a look. "We've been keeping up with everything going on in New York City the past 2 days," Sven said. "Liv, you would be the one to announce you're the most powerful person in town, and you are." "It couldn't be helped. The situation forced my hand." Olivia shrugged. "I could be polite, but nobody gets anywhere being polite." "You're right, though. We can't let anyone find out about your actual condition," Sven said thoughtfully. "Leave it to me. I will take care of everything." "Thank you," Olivia said. She didn't have to sugarcoat anything with Sven. He was Chris's most trusted friend, and she knew she could trust him too. The thought of Chris suddenly made her stop short. She looked at Sven and asked, "Is there still no news about Chris?" Sven heard Olivia's question and shook his head. "Unfortunately, our resources in Europe are limited. It wasn't enough." "Thank you for trying so hard," Olivia nodded. "You don't have to worry too much. They won't make things difficult for Chris," Sven reassured Olivia. "His name and status are too important. No matter what, they'll have to release him at the Assassins Union meeting at the end of the summer. You just need to focus on taking care of yourself now." "Okay, I'll look forward to that meeting," Olivia said as she tried to believe Sven's positivity. "Wait a minute," Brent interrupted Sven and pointed at Olivia. "You mean she plans to go to Europe in this condition? At the end of the summer?" "Yes," Sven nodded. "Is there a problem?" "The surgery recovery period. There's no way Olivia will be able to travel by the end of the summer." Brent shook his head. "When will Olivia get to leave the hospital?" Morgana asked. "You said it's not that big of a deal, but you don't know when?" "She'll be able to leave the hospital a few days after the surgery. But then she will need to rest for the next few months. No stress, no travel." Brent furrowed his brow. "The doctor intends to keep her here for a few weeks. Then there will be a strict recovery schedule at home into the fall." Brent looked at Olivia. He knew that the real cause of Olivia's illness was very concerning. "You'll be able to help me, though, won't you?" Olivia said to Brent. She knew his medical skills were far superior to any of the doctors in the hospital. "I don't know if I have enough time to dedicate to this specifically," Brent said hesitantly. "Oh, I think I understand what is going on," Olivia teased. "You're not sure you're confident in your medical skills to be able to help me. That's okay. I don't want you to be under unnecessary pressure." She hoped Brent would see this as a dare. Brent stared at Olivia in surprise. "Brent, you have to treat Olivia," Morgana pleaded. "Don't worry, it's not a confidence issue." Brent bristled slightly. He felt more determined. "I'll do what I can." "When will the surgery be?" Morgana asked. Just then, they heard a strange gurgling noise. They all looked to Morgana, whose eyes went wide as she clutched her rumbling belly. "And I'm starving," Morgana said as she held her stomach. "All of this stress is burning off too much of my energy. I'm going to starve to death." She sighed and dramatically keeled over on the edge of the bed. "Go get something to eat. Get out of here." Olivia waved her hand at Morgana. "All of you, please go eat. I'll be fine here on my own." "I can't just leave you here by yourself," Morgana insisted. She assessed Olivia's weak state. "It'll be fine. You guys go bring me back something good and I'll pay for it. All I need you to do is not to tell anyone what's going on with me." Olivia sighed. "Don't worry. I'll handle everything. This place will be safer than the White House." Sven nodded. "I'm going to get some well-deserved rest," Olivia said. "All right, fine," Morgana nodded. "No work or outdoing enemies when I come back. Got it?" "Got it," Olivia smiled. Morgana and Brent finally left with Sven and Atticus. As soon as they were gone, the relaxed expression on Olivia's face completely disappeared. She turned to look at the beautiful skyline outside her window. She sighed gently as the wind blew the curtain. It looked like a delicate white veil gliding on the breeze. Her thoughts soon drifted to Chris. "Chris, where the hell are you?" I'm so glad Sven is back safe and sound, but it's terrifying that he didn't get any closer to finding you. I don't know how I can live the rest of my life without you. I have to find a way to get better before the end of the summer, so I can find you at that Assassin's Union meeting. I have to be there." Olivia pulled the blanket up to her neck and a wave of exhaustion came over her. At last, she fell asleep. Olivia was so dead tired that she did not hear a quiet figure slip into her hospital room. The woman's high heels clicked on the floor as she walked. Olivia stirred as the click-clacking sound grew closer. Her eyes snapped open, and she saw a woman sitting by the bed with a menacing blade in her hand. Olivia jolted more awake and sat up. "If you are so afraid of death, then you shouldn't let yourself get caught alone like this," the woman said in a mocking tone. "Beatrix Cooper," Olivia said calmly and smiled. "Or should I call you by your other name, Thorns?" "That's just an alias, but whichever you prefer," Beatrix said, flipping the knife in her hand. Olivia and Beatrix exchanged pleasantries in the hospital room, almost as if they were old friends. Beatrix even held up a get-well fruit basket with her arm. The only thing that would keep anyone from assuming these two were old pals was the dagger Beatrix casually played with between her fingers. "So is it really just a routine mole biopsy you're here for?" Beatrix asked in a mocking tone. Her gaze lingered on Olivia's face and body. "It seems a bit much for them to give you a whole hospital room like this just to take off a tiny little bit of skin," she said nonchalantly as she twirled the knife again. "But who am I to know? I'm just a poor little Cooper girl. Maybe an entire hospital suite that's normally meant for extended stays is what they do for the most successful, powerful young woman in all of New York City." "Good guess." Olivia smiled with all of her teeth. "Family donations do go a very long way, and they like to take care of you. You should see where my family gets to go for a teeth cleaning." Beatrix did not seem to be listening to Olivia's words. Her beautiful eyes took on a dark shadow, and she did not acknowledge Olivia's deflection. "It just seems to me like it's an awfully big coincidence, right? I mean, what are the chances that you get a mole removed right now? The whole thing reeks to me. Do you really think I'm that stupid? I could see you thinking that about Jake or Mark, but me, please." "Oh, Beatrix, only a real fool would mistake you for a fool." Olivia's voice remained pleasant, but her words were heavy with venom. "Huh." Beatrix snorted coldly and looked at her blade. "Maybe you need more than a mole removed. You know, to remove everything that is suspicious." "How long did it take you to think that one up?" Olivia smiled. Beatrix ignored Olivia again and stepped closer. She held out the fruit basket. "I didn't come empty-handed. I brought you a get-well basket. There are some apples in here. You should have one. You know what they say, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I guess it's too late for that, though, right?" Beatrix raised an eyebrow, amused. "Don't worry, it's not poisoned." "Oh, you're so sweet and thoughtful." Olivia smiled sarcastically. "It's a wonder you didn't just go ahead and bring in a basket of explosives." Olivia paused for a moment and thought of something. "How is your sister Melanie doing?" "She's doing very well, thanks for asking," Beatrix said with a slight edge to her voice. The mention of Melanie's name coming out of Olivia's mouth made Beatrix clench her fists at her sides, and her anger threatened to bubble over. "Oh yeah, how well is she doing, like, specifically?" Olivia pressed. "She's doing better than you think, if that's what you're getting at," Beatrix said shortly. "Well, that's good to hear then. You know, it's probably worth remembering the lesson that when you try to hurt others, you really only ever hurt yourself." Olivia smiled. "I would think twice about scheming to do something like that again if I were you. Just some friendly advice." "I'm not scheming. I'm just here to do a good deed, that's all. I'm keeping my side of the street clean," Beatrix said coolly. "But we both know your side of the street has other neighbors in close quarters. You have to be careful or you might cross a line onto someone else's property. By accident, of course. Olivia said in a light voice, but her words were deadly sharp. Beatrix laughed pleasantly at Olivia's thinly veiled warning. She looked right into Olivia's eyes as she spoke. Don't worry about me, Olivia. I'm always careful and I don't make the same mistakes twice. I heard that you and the Venom King are working on something exciting together. It wouldn't have anything to do with this fruit basket, would it? Olivia looked pointedly at Beatrix and smiled. Like I said, it's not poisoned. I'm not a basic bitch. Poison is too easy for you. Beatrix shrugged casually. Are you looking forward to finding out what we're working on? Such a venomous type of bug must have taken a lot of lives, right? Olivia pressed. You will have to pay that karma back sooner or later. You believe in karma, don't you? Whatever consequences karma might have for me, I say bring them on. Karma couldn't do anything worse than what life has already thrown at me to kick me when I was down. Beatrix sneered. I thought you were careful. If you poke karma in the eye, you're going to feel its full wrath. Don't underestimate karma. That's the real bitch you want to be careful around. Olivia warned. She's not denying that they've already killed someone, Olivia thought. So the investigation into the pregnant woman definitely has something to do with Beatrix and her marrow worms. Beatrix put the knife into the fruit basket and placed it on the table next to Olivia's bed. I prefer to eat fruit when it's cut up into little tiny pieces. Keep the knife. It's on me. I've got others. And seriously, it's not poisoned. That would just be the most anticlimactic thing. Can you imagine? Beatrix laughed darkly. Enjoy and feel better from your mole or whatever. She turned to leave. Olivia quickly flashed into Beatrix's thoughts and saw that she was telling the truth. The fruit was not poisoned. Olivia figured as much, but one couldn't be too careful around Beatrix Cooper. Once Beatrix was gone, Olivia looked at the fruit basket. They did say I need better nutrition. She shrugged to herself. She picked up an apple and took a crunchy bite. That's pretty good, she admitted. As soon as Beatrix left Olivia's room, a cold glint flashed through her eyes as she walked down the hallway to the elevator. Beatrix knew there was still one more week before the poison worms would be ready. Once the Venom King arrived in New York City, it would be time for Olivia to die. I know about karma a lot more than you think, Beatrix muttered to herself. We'll see who laughs at it then. Beatrix's mouth curled into a cold smile as she pressed the button for the elevator. She pulled out her phone and made a call. Mark, Olivia is confirmed to be in the hospital. How do you know? Mark asked. I just saw her. Beatrix rolled her eyes impatiently. Oh, really? Mark asked, and he did not hide the glee in his voice. Is she in the hospital for anything serious? Supposedly it's not anything major. I think that's suspicious, but she seemed fine, unfortunately. Beatrix complained. Luckily, it won't matter in a few days either way, Beatrix said as she got into the elevator alone. By then, Olivia will be begging me to kill her. Just before the elevator doors closed, a few other people walking out of the other elevator to the last stepped out and heard what Beatrix said. It was Millie, Lena, and Frances. They immediately stopped in their tracks and looked to check the other elevator, but the door had already closed. They all looked at each other with concern, then rushed to Olivia's room. Olivia, are you all right? They exclaimed as they burst through the door. Olivia stared back at them in the middle of eating a banana. Yes? Olivia replied, then smiled. You guys are here. What happened to you? Lena asked. I'm fine, Olivia said, beckoning them to sit by her. Here, have some fruit. Millie took a banana. Who came to your room just now? Beatrix Cooper. Olivia shrugged as she casually took another bite of her own banana. She even left me a fruit basket. What? All of this fruit is from her? Lena gasped and spat out the grapes she was already chewing. Why would you eat fruit from Beatrix Cooper? Olivia swallowed her bite of banana confidently. She's way too dramatic and clever to just poison a fruit basket. She's a more elaborate planner than that. It would have affected me by now anyway, but I'm fine. And it's pretty good fruit, actually. Olivia had to respect Beatrix's bold move to come see her. It was a smart tactic to confirm that she was in the hospital. There's still the business of the marrow worms. That is concerning. Olivia narrowed her eyes in thought. Well, I'm glad she didn't poison you. Lena nodded in relief and took a few more grapes. Olivia, didn't you come to the hospital for a checkup? Why are you in a room now? Frances asked. I'm just having a little procedure done. Olivia smiled reassuringly. They thought a mole might be cancerous down the road, so they're removing it now. Olivia said and looked at Millie. Millie caught Olivia's meaningful gaze and nodded her head. She sensed that there was more to the story than what Olivia was sharing at that moment, but she trusted her friend to reveal all in good time. She did not know what Olivia would tell her. She would have to think of a way to ask in private later so she could find out what it was. Millie, Lena, and Frances continued to catch up with Olivia for a short while as they visited her in the hospital. Millie enjoyed having Lena and Frances there, but she sensed that Olivia wanted to tell her something while they were alone. She waited until they had a good long visit before she looked at her phone and announced, Wow, it's almost 5 o'clock. Why don't you two start heading home and I'll catch up with you soon. I still have to visit my dad here. It was the perfect excuse and not entirely untrue. Oh yeah, good idea, Lena and Frances agreed. We will come back and see you tomorrow, okay? Lena said to Olivia. That's really nice of you. Olivia smiled appreciatively. When I hurt my leg and was in the hospital for ages, you came to see me all the time. I'm glad I can return the gesture. Lena beamed and gathered her things. See you later, Frances waved as he and Lena left Olivia's room. As soon as the door closed behind them, Millie turned to look at Olivia. Okay, Spill. I know that look you're giving me. What is really going on? Well, it's not the worst that could happen, I think. Olivia sighed. Then she recounted the entire story of her diagnosis. Millie sat in shock for a few moments before she finally responded to Olivia's serious news. So, there really is a problem with your body? Like Morgana kept insisting for the last few weeks? Millie frowned in confusion. Millie had suspected something was probably up with Olivia's health, but nothing too serious. They all thought Morgana was just being her usual exaggerated self when she made grave predictions about Olivia's health. Yes, Olivia nodded. I've been working way too hard, just like you've all tried to tell me. It turns out I overworked my way into needing a kidney transplant. The kidney is pretty important, Millie said in a daze as she thought through what Olivia told her. It is, Olivia said. She knew that she could not hide the seriousness of the situation from Millie. She was too smart not to figure it out, so she decided to tell her right then rather than later. There would be no use in even trying to keep it from Millie. So you made up the story about them taking a mole biopsy? Millie asked. Yeah, that was a cover story. Olivia nodded. That's quite a stretch of the truth, huh? Millie joked. I had no other choice. I didn't want to have to lie, but it's too dangerous if the wrong people find out I'm this vulnerable right now. Olivia explained. It's true. Millie sighed deeply and looked at Olivia. She felt anxious and sad. Sometimes I really hate myself for being powerless to help. What do you mean? You've already helped me so much. Olivia smiled. You even just being here to see me already makes me very happy and helps. Well, your secret is safe with me. Millie nodded. She understood why the secrecy was so important. Just then the door suddenly opened and Morgana marched in with a bag of takeout. Millie, you're here! Morgana explained and placed the bag of food on the table. My brothers and Sven already went home. Sven said he was going to find a special guard for you and they'll come later. Olivia looked at the huge takeout bag that Morgana brought. What did you bring back for me? An entire Vegas buffet? Brent said that you're very malnourished, so I figured it was time to make up for it. Morgana clapped her hands excitedly. She began to put containers of food out on the table. It's all the nutritious food you never eat, see? Morgana was very pleased with herself. Ugh. Olivia saw that the food was all steamed vegetables and other healthy foods. She immediately looked to Millie for help from Morgana's health tyranny. Millie! Morgana squealed when she saw their friend. Millie chuckled warmly at Morgana's excited reaction. I have to head out now. I'll see you later. Millie quickly left the hospital room. You? Olivia called after her, speechless. Millie really abandoned me with Morgana and vegetables, Olivia thought. When Olivia turned around and saw Morgana looking suddenly very serious. Morgana? Is everything okay? Morgana took a deep breath. Olivia, I need to talk to you about something. Olivia steeled herself, wondering what was so grave that it could make even Morgana take on such a somber tone. Okay, what is it? Morgana looked down at her hands. You need to tell people what's really going on with you. Olivia was about to open her mouth when Morgana quickly interrupted her. I'm not saying the world needs to know. I understand why you don't want your enemies to have this kind of information. Morgana swallowed. But your family and friends deserve to know the truth. They love you, we love you, and we'll help to protect you. But you need to trust us. Olivia watched Morgana a moment, letting her words sink in. She knew she was right. This whole time she was trying to protect those she loved most, but she hadn't considered that keeping something like this to herself might ultimately hurt them. You're right, Olivia nodded. I'll tell them. Morgana smiled widely at Olivia and reached out to squeeze her hand. Good. Now let's get you some of these nice steamed vegetables. Morgana reached for a container of food and Olivia groaned. After leaving Olivia's room, Millie took the elevator to the first floor and then went straight to Principal Yan's hospital room. She had come to see him once before, so this time she was familiar with how to get to him in the giant hospital. She knocked on the door twice and then pushed it open. Dad? She gently called out to him. You're here! Principal Yan said warmly when he saw Millie. He was propped up in bed, reading a book, but he set it down and smiled as Millie walked in. How are you feeling? Millie asked. Much better, actually, Principal Yan said. I probably could have been discharged from the hospital today, but Derek wanted me to stay for another 2 days for observation. He did? Where is he now? Millie asked, slightly nervous as she sat beside Principal Yan's bed. So far, Derek had kept his promise to stay away from her, and she was not ready to ruin that streak by running into him by accident. He went to see a friend. He said he would come back later tonight. Principal Yan said. A friend? Millie wondered to herself. She suspected he was talking about Millie. She hoped he had at least held up that end of their deal. Across town, the city streets were bustling in the warm evenings. It seemed like a welcome to summer coming soon, and there was more laughter than usual at one particular table on this Sunday night. Thank you for meeting me today. Millie beamed with a glass of champagne in her hand. And for this champagne, it's very good. You're welcome. Derek nodded slightly. He was not sure what to say next. What time is it? Millie asked suddenly. It's almost 6:30. Do you need to head out already? Derek asked. Yeah, I have a job I have to do around now, Millie explained. Is it at the bar? Derek asked. No, it's something else, Millie said vaguely. I actually took a temporary leave from the bar. Now that we're fully staffed, my boss agreed to let me do it. What time does it start? I'll walk you there, Derek offered. 7 o'clock, Millie answered. She felt so frustrated to have to leave Derek after all of this time of desperately wanting to see him. It's not even that I have a job to do, actually. It's that I didn't want to take the job, but I was told that I could only decline it if I explained in person at the Rose Hotel at 7 o'clock. Nothing bad is going to happen, right? Derek frowned. He did not know why Melly needed to be there in person just to turn the job down. It was strange. I don't think so. The guy just wants a full explanation. He seemed pretty generous, actually. Melly laughed as she thought about it. I'll walk you over there in a bit, Derek said. Thanks, Melly smiled. It felt strange to be looked out for again. Derek cleared his throat. Melly, I actually have something to tell you. There was no point in putting off the conversation any longer, so he went straight for it. I've decided to go back to school, for real. I want to graduate this time. That's great, Melly said. I'm proud of you, she said shyly. Derek looked at Melly's expression and opened his mouth to speak. He had planned to tell her he couldn't hang out with her anymore because he needed to focus on pulling his own life back together. He needed to figure out why he had such big anger issues, and he did not think it was wise to have anyone else in his life at the moment, especially not someone as genuine as Melly. Melly, he hesitated, then looked at her and soldiered on. How much longer did you want to be hanging out with me like this? Melly's face froze. She could tell by the way Derek sounded that he wanted to end their friendship, but he was trying not to hurt her feelings. Let me stop you right there, Melly said abruptly. You disappeared for so long. Kind of a terrible friend. Why don't we just call it right now? Derek looked at Melly in a daze. He did not understand how she was suddenly ending the friendship with him. What, are you confused? Melly frowned at Derek. You're free now. I won't bother you again. Oh. Derek did not understand what was going on with Melly, but he did not feel relieved by her dumping him as a friend first. Instead, he felt guilty. Melly stood up from her chair and made a big show of waving farewell to Derek. I don't need you. Bye. As Melly walked away from Derek, she could not help but beat herself up for being so stupid to think that Derek would want to be in her life. She always knew that they were two people from two very different worlds. Melly had all the proof that Derek's future and her future were in two parallel lines that would never cross. Suddenly, Melly felt someone grab her hand from behind. She quickly turned to see. It was Derek. It's almost 7 o'clock. At least let me walk you to the hotel, he said. You don't have to do that, Melly said gruffly. The last thing she wanted was a pity walk. I promised you already that I'd do it, and I still want to keep that promise. The stuff about not hanging out anymore, that doesn't apply yet. That won't start until tomorrow. Come on, Derek insisted. Melly looked at Derek and was left speechless. She worried that if she opened her mouth to say anything else, she might burst into tears, and she really did not want to cry in front of him. She took a deep breath and nodded. Once she felt more confident, she finally spoke. You can walk me there. After that, that's it. Okay, Derek agreed. He did not say anything else as he started to walk in the direction of the hotel. Melly walked along beside him. They remained in silence the whole way. At last, they reached the hotel, and Derek lingered for a moment, looking guilty. He finally worked up the guts to say goodbye. Goodbye, Melly nodded and looked at Derek one last time. She gritted her teeth and turned away to walk into the Rose Hotel lobby. Derek watched Melly through the huge glass door. Just as he was about to turn and leave, he saw a young man in a suit walk towards Melly. They chatted at the door for some time before they went into the elevator up to the restaurant. Even after Melly and the young man disappeared, Derek kept thinking about the guy and thought that he looked familiar. He wondered why he felt like he had seen him before. As he searched his memory, an angry face appeared in his mind. Derek's heart skipped a beat as he realized he recognized him as the guy who he had stopped from hitting the nurse at the hospital the other day. He immediately wanted to know why Melly was meeting up with someone like that. He clenched his fists and walked into the hotel after Melly. I'm so sorry, but I really don't want to accept the job, Melly said firmly as she sat down at the table in a private dining suite that Jake had reserved in the hotel's restaurant. She looked regretful as she spoke to Jake Nevin across from her. Please, if you give me your account information, I will transfer the money right back to you. I don't want it, and I want to forget about the whole thing." "There's no rush." Jake smiled as he looked Melly up and down from head to toe. "I think we were meant to meet each other." "I don't think we were meant to do anything," Melly said firmly and avoided his gaze. Even just in the few minutes she had been near him, she got more and more of a bad feeling about Jake. She remembered that when he first approached her about the job, he had looked familiar to her, but she couldn't quite figure out why. In this moment, she recalled that she saw him at the Marshall School when she first looked for Derek to return his money. He had never left a good impression with her, even back then. "Why don't we eat before you quit? It's the least I can do since you came all this way," Jake reasoned. "Jake, I still have things I need to do. I don't have time to stay any longer than I already have," Melly replied. Jake poured some water from a bottle into Melly's glass, and she quickly drank it and raised her eyebrows to show she was done. She hoped that filling up on water would satisfy her growling stomach. "Like I said before, I think that fate brought us together. You're the only one who can do this task for me. I don't even want the money back. You should keep it. I don't care about that stuff." Jake persisted. He eyed the empty water glass and knew that he needed something else to keep Melly there. He snapped his fingers and the waiter appeared with dishes of hot food for the table. Melly glanced at the food and swallowed hungrily. Everything smelled delicious. Melly poured herself some more water and downed it in an effort to resist the tempting food. "Jake, you have plenty of money and power at your disposal. What could you possibly need a bartender like me for? If you really don't care about the money, then I guess I'll keep it, but I refuse to spend it. Call me whenever you change your mind and I'll definitely return it to you. Now goodbye." Melly got up and was about to leave. "Don't you at least want to know what the job is and why you're perfect for it? I'm telling you, you're the only one who could do it," Jake said. Melly could tell that Jake was not going to take the money back. She decided that it would be better to hear his proposal. If it was really not a difficult task, she might agree to it, and then at least she would be able to spend the money with a clear conscience. "All right, what is it you want me to do?" Melly asked. "It's pretty simple. I just need you to spend only one night with a specific person," Jake said, holding up his index finger. "It's just one night." Melly was stunned that he asked for such a scandalous task. "Who do you think I am?" "Who do you think you are?" Jake countered as his smile widened. "I can't take this job. You'll just have to ask someone else." Melly shook her head. Jake laughed and stood up as well. "You're the only one on Earth who could possibly pull this off," Jake said. He thought about a secret Saibon had told him in regards to Melly's true identity. Something she had dug up herself that she gave to Jake to use in case he should ever need it. If Saibon was right about Melly, that she was a long-lost relative of one of the biggest old money families in the world, then this would be the best plan ever. Melly had her hands clenched tightly into fists at her sides. She felt dizzy with anger as it rushed up to her head. "Listen, I don't need to rely on anyone. I would rather starve before earning this kind of money through coercion. You've asked the wrong person." "Is that so?" Jake sneered. "Yeah, you—" Melly trailed off as her body suddenly swayed, and she felt like she no longer had full control over her limbs. Her legs felt weak, and the room seemed warped. "I'm afraid that it's no longer up to you," Jake said. He snapped his fingers again, and the waiter returned with a cold expression. "You—" Melly tried again, but she did not get another word out before she fell backwards. The waiter was there to quickly catch her before she hit the ground. "How is Mark DeLillo doing?" Jake asked the hired waiter as he casually fixed his tie. "He's working in a private room on the top floor. I put the solution you gave me in his tea," the waiter reported dutifully. "Good. Send her up," Jake instructed, and a flash of coldness came across his eyes. "The secret tapes have also been prepared." "Yes, sir." The waiter hesitated, then carefully added, Sir, you agreed that before—" "Don't worry, you will be paid generously once this matter is settled." Jake sneered and put his hands in his pockets. "Take her there," he ordered. "Yes, sir." The waiter nodded and hauled Melly out of the room. The door slammed shut behind them. Now that Jake was finally alone, he walked over to the window with a sneer. He felt that victory was within his grasp. Saibon's plan was perfect. He would make it look as if Mark had drugged this Melly girl and tried to take advantage of her. If Saibon was correct about Melly's true identity, then there would be a very powerful, very dangerous family that would be upset and come after Mark for revenge, and Jake would have his own revenge. He thought Saibon was finally helping him with a brilliant plan in return for all that he had done for her. But little did he know that Saibon was only interested in securing her own leverage against the mysterious man, should she ever need it. The mysterious man worked with Mark DeLillo, and the mysterious man would not enjoy it if Mark DeLillo was killed by such an important family. As soon as Derek entered the Rose Hotel, he went upstairs to look for Melly. Just as he ran out onto the top floor, the waiter pulled a barely upright Melly out of the elevator. "Who are you? This is the top floor. It's not open to the public," the waiter shouted. He was stunned to see anyone on this floor, and he hoped scolding Derek would make him go away. Derek saw the state Melly was in and did not hesitate to walk forward and kick the waiter in the stomach. Derek quickly pulled Melly away from the man. Her face looked very red, and she was about to collapse. Before the waiter could get back up from the ground, Derek was already hauling Melly away in a hurry. "You! Stop right there!" The waiter clutched at his stomach in pain and used the wall for support as he slowly chased after them. Just then, the elevator opened again. A maid from the hotel peered out of the other elevator on the top floor. She signaled to two people that the coast was clear, and a father and daughter pair stepped out. "Dad, what are we doing here? Beatrix will be worried if she gets home later and I'm not there," Melanie whispered to her father. "Don't worry, this won't take long," Brett Cooper answered. A shadow flashed across his scheming eyes. "Not very long at all." The hotel maid motioned for Brett and Melanie Cooper to follow her. "Mr. DeLillo's private office is this way," she said in a low voice. "I already slipped him the drug in his afternoon scotch. He drank the whole thing. I saw it with my own eyes." Brett was pleased to hear that everything was going according to his plan. He had been desperate to find a way to get Mark DeLillo's help in securing the financial future of the Cooper family. And then he had his brilliant idea. It was simple. They would drug Mark so that he would sleep with Melanie. Then they would catch evidence of it on camera to blackmail Mark. He would have to marry Melanie to keep the photos from going public, and then Brett and the rest of the family would never need to worry about money again. "The door is unlocked. You can just go in," the maid instructed. Brett handed her a wad of cash, and she quickly hurried away as if she did not know them. "Well, it's now or never." Brett shrugged and guided Melanie towards the door to Mark's private office. "Dad, I don't know about this," Melanie said hesitantly. "You know Beatrix won't like it. She'll be so angry." "Beatrix is being short-sighted. This is about the rest of your life and how you want to live it. Why do you think I shelled out so much money for this plan? It's all to secure your future. And Beatrix's too, if you want. You'll be the one to decide since you'll have all the benefits." Brett felt annoyed at Melanie's last-minute doubts. Trying to get his daughters to cooperate with anything was like herding cats, even when it was something for their own good. "You can't seriously be overthinking this right now. You were on board earlier. What happened? I've been working on this for a long time. Do you have any idea how difficult it was to find an employee here who was willing to betray Mark like this? Surprisingly difficult." Melanie chattered on nervously. "Dad, don't be upset. I'm just afraid that Beatrix—" "What is there to worry about? Listen to me," Brett snorted. "Mark DeLillo is a single man with the most promising financial prospects in New York City. He has already bought so much land in Brooklyn, it's outrageous. Developing any of those pieces of land is worth a fortune. How can you not be jumping at the chance to be with such a powerful man? Do you really expect to be taken care of by your sister for the rest of your life? But, Melanie bit her lower lip. Beatrix will be furious. I don't want her to be upset. I don't know what she'll do. You know how she is when she gets angry. Nonsense, Beatrix can't stay angry at you. She's too fond of you. You're being ridiculous. Brett gritted his teeth and spoke sternly. The road has been paved for you. You just need to stroll down it now. If you miss this opportunity, you can forget about ever catching up to Olivia Johnson's success for the rest of your life. When Brett mentioned Olivia's name, Melanie's expression changed. How can you be so useless? Look at me, wasting all this money for nothing. Brett noticed from Melanie's expression that the wheels were turning in her head. He snorted coldly, then turned around to leave in a huff. No, wait! Melanie quickly reached out and grabbed Brett by the elbow and pulled him back. I'll go. That's more like it. Brett smiled cunningly. He patted Melanie's shoulder. Your old dad has been working hard for his entire life. It has all been for you girls. Would I ever do anything to hurt you? Anything that wasn't for your own good? He asked innocently. Melanie looked up at her father. Her father had done some questionable things in her life when it concerned his family, but she did not believe that he would push her into a fire pit. Still, she had some remaining hesitation. Beatrix, you're sure I shouldn't discuss this with her? She usually thinks of important details. Beatrix wouldn't understand, but she will once you're married to Mark. Think about it. Once you have his money and his connections, you'll be able to take care of Beatrix and the entire Cooper family. She'll understand once it's all said and done. Brett knew that Beatrix would oppose this plan. That's why he had purposely waited for her to leave the house before sneaking Melanie out. He also knew that the best way to get Melanie to agree with this plan would be to play up her emotions when it came to her sister. Melanie thought about her father's words, then spoke. All right, Melanie nodded. But what if Mark refuses? Stop worrying about negative scenarios. Dad's got it all taken care of. Brett patted Melanie on the back and smiled as he gently nudged her forward. Go on. We're a bit tight on time. Melanie pursed her lips and made up her mind. She wanted more than anything to be able to protect and take care of her sister. And if this was the way to achieve that, so be it. With a new sense of determination, Melanie took out her phone, set it to record, then pushed open the door to Mark's office. Brett watched the door close behind Melanie, and he smugly curled his lips into a grin. He imagined that in the near future, when Mark DeLillo became his son-in-law, he could be the one to decide the fate of the Rose Company. He felt a tiny twinge of guilt that Melanie had to take one for the team like this. After all, she was his daughter, and it wasn't ideal to use her in a sexual blackmail plot. But what choice did he have? Times were desperate. He reminded himself that this was not just for him, but for all of the Cooper family. So he clenched his fist, steeled himself through the discomfort of the situation, and tried not to think too hard about it. Meanwhile, across the river in New Jersey, Beatrix suddenly felt her heartbeat quicken. She was overcome with the terrible feeling that something bad was happening. She dropped the glass she was holding and it shattered, spilling her drink all over the floor. What's wrong? Carolina Crawford asked Beatrix. You look weird. Nothing. I'm fine, Beatrix said, but she felt that something was not right. She quickly stood up to leave. Carolina, I still have some things I have to take care of at home. Sorry, but I have to go now. Huh? Carolina was surprised. You're leaving all of a sudden? Just like that? Sorry, but I have to. Beatrix nodded. Hang on. You have to tell me everything about Olivia, Carolina said sharply. She's in the hospital, but it seems like it's only for something minor. Beatrix nodded. Well, that's too bad. I can't stand Olivia. She's such a thorn in my side, always causing trouble. It would be nice if she were there for something more serious. Carolina sighed. But at least she's stuck in the hospital for now. It will be much easier for me to go after Millie while she's unprotected. Carolina plotted. Even though Olivia's in the hospital, Millie will still have the Pell twins protecting her, Beatrix reminded. They might stick with her for a while, but they can't possibly escort her around for the rest of their lives, Carolina said coldly. If they dare to ruin my plans again, I will get rid of them myself. I'm rooting for you, Beatrix smiled and took her leave. Beatrix exited Carolina Crawford's temporary villa in New Jersey and took her car straight back home. Beatrix, you're back, Erica exclaimed when she saw Beatrix return home. Where's Melanie? Beatrix asked coldly. Upstairs, Erica answered. I saw her at noon. I went out again in the afternoon and just came back. Beatrix went upstairs. She touched the door handle to Melanie's room and hesitated for a moment before opening the door. Melanie? There was no reply. Beatrix burst into Melanie's room and saw no sign of her. The blankets were pulled back and the bed was cold. The lights had been turned off and it seemed that Melanie had been gone for some time. Melanie! Beatrix called out, increasingly worried. Beatrix, what's wrong? Erica asked as she hurried to catch up. She looked around at the empty room. Where is Melanie? You don't know where she is? Beatrix shrieked. Her face was pale as she pushed past Erica and raced downstairs, calling out for her sister. Melanie! Melanie, where are you? Beatrix! Erica cried and chased after her down the stairs. A terrible feeling came over her. Miss Cooper, a maid timidly spoke up. I saw Miss Melanie go out earlier. What? Beatrix's heart raced. She felt as if all of the oxygen in the room had suddenly been sucked out. She could barely catch her breath. How could this be? Erica gasped. Her legs went weak and she crumbled to the ground. She knew that Melanie had been close to recovery, but she was not fully ready to be out of the house. She had no idea where Melanie could have gone. Fear gripped Beatrix and Erica's hearts. Was anyone with her? Beatrix asked the maid. She had a feeling who it was, and rage erupted in her eyes. The maid nodded. Yes, it was your father, Mr. Brett. Back at the Rose Hotel, Melanie was completely focused on staging a scandalous scene in Mark's private room. And it was all for her father's devious plan to trap Mark DeLillo into marriage. Melanie understood that Brett's scheme would only work if Mark genuinely believed that he had slept with Melanie while they were drunk. She glanced at Mark, who was passed out on the bed thanks to the drugs Brett bribed a maid to slip into his scotch. Melanie had never been in a hotel room as fancy as this one. There were multiple rooms, including the one Mark used as his office, where he had been working, where he started to feel very lightheaded and felt the need to lie down. Melanie was grateful that Mark had made his own way to bed. Otherwise, she wasn't sure how she would have moved him herself. She swallowed as she looked at the passed-out young man, only a year or two her senior, and felt a deep sense of dread. Before entering the room, Brett Cooper had reminded Melanie that Mark was going to be the richest man in New York City, and that not just her future, but Beatrix's future too hinged on getting Mark to marry her. Melanie did not like the plan, but she knew sacrifices would need to be made if she had any hope of independence for herself and Beatrix. Melanie set about leaving evidence of a drunken one-night stand in the room while Mark still slept on the bed, completely unaware. She struggled to strip off his clothes. She was much smaller than him, and Mark was all dead weight in his drugged slumber. On top of being smaller, Melanie was also still very weak and not fully recovered from her own drugging incident. She used all of her strength to roll Mark this way and that so that she could pull his clothes off. It was difficult for her to support his weight the entire time, and several times she accidentally dropped him back onto the bed. She feared that he would wake up and catch her taking off his clothes, but he never stirred. Melanie concluded that the drugs the maid put in Mark's drink must have been pretty strong to keep him unconscious through all of this. She had no idea that the maid had been the second person to slip drugs into Mark DeLillo's drink today. The drugs Jake had paid the waiter to give to Mark were also taking effect, leaving Mark far more out of it than anyone had planned. Once Melanie removed all of his clothes, she managed to position him under the covers in the bed. She took a moment to rest from all of the effort. The most physically difficult part of the task was done. Now she set out empty bottles of alcohol and dirty glasses that her father had brought along as props. Suddenly, Mark let out a loud snore, startling Melanie so much she let out a little yelp. She held her breath and stared at him for a moment, waiting to see if he moved anymore. He continued to breathe steadily, but he remained still, completely unconscious. She wondered if the drugs would wear off soon and knew she needed to hurry. She looked in the mirror and quickly rubbed her face to mess up her makeup. She messed up her hair a bit as well, teasing the roots with her fingers. Seeing herself in the mirror made her pause and question again whether she was doing the right thing. She knew that Beatrix would be furious when she found out that their dad had put her up to sleeping with Mark DeLillo, even if it was a lie. Beatrix thought Mark was one of the biggest fools she had ever met, and she would never want her sister to be stuck with a guy like that for a husband. Melanie didn't really want a Mark DeLillo type for herself either, but she also understood that not everyone could afford to wait around for someone they really liked to come along and save the day. The fate of the family rested on her, and Mark was a ticket to a better life for herself and Beatrix. Melanie decided she could withstand Beatrix's disappointment and even her judgment, as long as it meant she could keep her sister safe and cared for the rest of their lives. Melanie comforted herself with the idea that she wouldn't even have to spend much time with Mark once they were married. He was a rich and powerful businessman who would be too busy to come home most nights, and would probably be away traveling much of the time anyway. Chances were that Mark might even prefer to spend his free time with mistresses, especially if he felt forced to marry Melanie in the first place. Melanie could live with that arrangement as long as she could just enjoy the rest of her life with her sister. She and Beatrix would never have to do anything rash to survive again. Just then, Mark moaned slightly and began to stir. Melanie knew it was time to enact the plan. She quickly stripped off her own clothes and tossed them around the room. Then she slipped into the bed naked next to Mark. She shut her eyes, pretending to be asleep. She had never been in a real situation like this before, and it was very strange to be naked with a stranger. She repeated in her mind that it would all be worth it when she could take care of Beatrix and live the rest of their lives in peace. Mark moaned again, and his eyes slowly fluttered open. His head was pounding, and he felt like he was moving through a thick fog. He blinked and gradually became conscious of the room around him. He realized he was in the bed in his private hotel suite. He had trouble remembering how he had gotten there, but figured he had worked into the night and eventually crashed. He tried to recall what exactly he had been working on before he fell asleep, and realized that he could not. His memory was a complete blank. From the way his head was aching, he concluded he must have been drinking, and perhaps enough to forget the events of the evening. He reached out to rub his face, and his arm felt like it weighed 100 pounds. His whole body felt heavy and sluggish. Mark sighed and slowly rolled onto his side. What he saw next to him made him freeze in shock. Mark's eyes widened as he stared at the young woman in bed beside him. She appeared to be asleep and looked like she wasn't wearing any clothes either. He quickly looked down at his own body and realized he wasn't wearing a shirt. He glanced under the covers and confirmed that they were both without any clothes in the bed. Worst of all, he recognized her as Beatrix Cooper's younger sister Melanie. How did this happen? Mark felt the panic rising in his throat as he struggled to remember what happened the night before. He glanced around the room and saw the empty bottles of alcohol on the coffee table and their clothing strewn about on the floor. The fact was that he could not remember any of it. It was not the first time he had drunkenly slept with a random woman and not remembered anything. The problem was that this was Melanie Cooper, and he did not need her older sister Beatrix to suddenly become his enemy. That would be a disaster. He also was afraid to find out how old Melanie actually was. He knew she was younger than Beatrix, but he couldn't remember how much younger. Mark groaned to himself. How could he be so stupid? Just then, Melanie sighed and began to stir awake. Mark stared at her wide-eyed as Melanie's eyes opened. He had no idea if she would remember how they got there either, and he worried that he might have to try and give an explanation if she didn't. This was very bad. "Mark?" Melanie said, eyes wide. She pretended to be equally as confused and surprised to discover him in bed next to her. "What are you... How did we..." She sat up and pulled the sheets around her self-consciously. "I'm trying to figure that out myself," Mark admitted carefully. He decided it might be best to see what she owned up to first before he made any guesses. Maybe this would all just be a misunderstanding. "The last thing I remember is sharing a drink here in this room," Melanie said quietly. "I was at home waiting for Beatrix to come, and I hadn't heard from her, so I started to worry. I know she works with you, so I came here looking for her and wandered up to the top floor to see if she might be here. I heard your offices were up here, and then I ran into you, and you said you weren't sure where Beatrix was. Then you invited me to join you, and we started talking, and then you got out a bottle of scotch, and then..." Melanie trailed off. "That can't be right," Mark argued in disbelief. "I don't remember any of this. None of this is adding up. Why would I do that? You're Beatrix's sister." "You said you wanted to get to know me?" Melanie exclaimed, looking hurt. "You weren't angry like this last night. You said you wanted me to be here, and that you liked talking to me. It was my first time drinking and, well, it was my first time doing anything." "Are you sure we had sex?" Mark asked incredulously. "I think I would remember that." Melanie's lip quivered. "I wouldn't have done it if we hadn't gotten so drunk, especially if I knew you would act like this. That was my first time and you don't even remember? You told me it would be special," Melanie said, doing her best to sound offended. I have to go. This doesn't feel right. Something weird is going on," Mark said as he quickly pulled his clothes back on. Just then, there was a loud pounding on the door. "Mark DeLillo, where is my daughter? What have you done with her? You can't hide from me," Brett bellowed through the door. The color instantly drained from Mark's face. Suddenly, the doorknob turned and Brett Cooper burst into the room. He marched in and gasped at the sight of Mark and Melanie in bed together. "What's this? I thought you were a respectable man, DeLillo," Brett yelled. "This is not what it looks like. It can't be," Mark started to say. "My daughter has been saving herself for marriage, and now you've ruined her, you brute," Brett ranted and pointed his finger accusingly at Mark. He looked like he was going to explode with rage as he shouted about Mark stealing his daughter's honor. In her mind, Melanie was disgusted by the way her father lied with such gusto. She did not like his suggestion that she had been ruined by anyone either. Still, she reminded herself that this whole plan was for the benefit of herself and Beatrix, and in the long run it would all be worth it. She buckled down and played along with a horrified look on her face. "I don't know what you're talking about," Mark shouted back. "None of this makes any sense, and I'm telling you I didn't do it. If you don't get out of my face right now, I'm going to have you both thrown out. So you better put your clothes back on right now," he warned Melanie. "It doesn't make sense. Look at yourself," Brett shouted, spittle flying from his mouth. He quickly took out his phone and began snapping photos of the two in bed. "I know how this will look to the rest of the world, at least." "Stop. I demand you to stop taking pictures of me." Mark held up his arms to cover his face. "How dare you treat my young daughter this way? Just use her and toss her aside? This is not the Mark DeLillo that everyone in New York City loves, is it?" Brett puffed himself up. "There's only one solution here. You have to marry Melanie, or we will tell everyone the truth about what you've done here." Mark gaped at Brett Cooper in shock. Mark stared at Brett in disbelief. Although he was slowly coming to his senses, he still found himself feeling incredibly overwhelmed and a little groggy from the drugs. He took a moment to survey the scene, looking over at Melanie, who shifted uncomfortably as she held her breath. Mark noticed that she looked particularly nervous all of a sudden. Feeling his gaze, Melanie quickly glanced down at her knees, not wanting to give herself away. Mark looked back at Brett, who was still staring him down. Even though he was not entirely sure what was going on, he was not about to let Brett Cooper, of all people, make him look stupid. He had way too much going on right now, and he knew that he was in the power position. So Mark decided to take a chance and call their bluff. Who's going to believe that I, one of New York's most eligible bachelors, would want to sleep with some teenager from a washed-up family? He sneered. I have photos of the two of you in bed to prove it. Brett waved his phone in the air. And besides, Melanie was a virgin before she entered this room. We can prove you took that away from her, too. Melanie couldn't help but look at her father in shock. She knew there was no real way to prove that kind of thing. But she couldn't believe her own dad would suggest something so invasive of her privacy. Brett's expression remained unchanged. Although he knew how to put on a show, he couldn't care less about his daughter's supposed loss of innocence. He needed this plan to work. Beatrix wasn't reliable anymore, and Melanie was his last chance to solidify their place in the Rose Empire. But Mark wasn't buying it. The cracks were beginning to show. Brett's poker face was fading. Those photos you took don't prove anything. I mean, come on, me and Melanie? I don't think so. This is just ridiculous. Mark shifted away from Melanie in bed, his head starting to clear. Melanie felt her heartbeat speed up. She had to do something to salvage their plan. Mark, how could you say that? Melanie whipped out the crocodile tears. I gave myself to you, she cried, putting on a full performance. Brett raised his voice, reacting to his daughter's award-winning act. Look at what you've done. Now you're calling my daughter a liar. What I've done? What about what you've done? Mark jumped up and out of bed and collected his scattered clothes. All you've managed to do here is waste my time and make your own daughter look like a cheap whore. Mark's nonchalance was beginning to make Brett angry. Mark was so full of himself that Brett didn't even need to fake it anymore. She's crying. You're going to be sorry, he yelled, flushed and hot in the face. Mark laughed dryly, putting on the last of his clothes and headed for the door. Whatever you say, Brett. Mark threw a cold glance at Melanie. Stop crying. It doesn't look good on you. Melanie quickly stopped, looking embarrassed. Before he exited, Mark looked Brett square in the eye and smiled. You think you're so smart. How many times are you going to throw your daughters at me before you realize that I'm not interested? Brett momentarily considered punching him in the face. He grimaced. He was about to respond when Mark interrupted him by raising his hand. No one will believe that photo of me and Melanie is real anyways. Haven't you heard of Photoshop? They'll all think it's doctored. Mark smiled with all of his teeth. Melanie's mind raced. She couldn't believe that she let her father talk her into this. Now Beatrix was really going to be angry with her. Mark shook his head disappointedly. This was a fun little play you two put together, very theatrical. Bravo! But the show's over. Please see yourselves out. I have business to attend to. And just like that, Mark walked out, leaving Brett and Melanie behind in the disheveled hotel room. In heated frustration, Brett slammed the door shut behind Mark. Melanie gasped, then turned to gawk at her father, who just stood there stunned. What are we supposed to do now? Melanie asked, unsure if she even wanted to know the answer. Brett's expression was blank. Completely stuck in his head, he replayed the conversation with Mark over and over, trying to figure out his next move. He couldn't believe he was spoken to that way by a child. Brett clenched his fist, vowing to figure out a way to outsmart him. Dad? Melanie waved her hands in front of Brett, trying to get his attention. He blinked and snapped back to reality again. Get dressed. Brett turned and walked out of the hotel room. Melanie let out a deep sigh. She knew this wasn't over, and she was already dreading whatever it was Brett had planned next. But Melanie reminded herself why she was doing this in the first place. It wasn't about power, at least not in the same way it was for her father. This was about Beatrix. Melanie had been sick for so long, and Beatrix had taken such good care of her. She was tired of being a burden. Melanie got dressed and joined Brett in the hotel hallway. Okay, let's go. They headed out, a faraway look in Melanie's eyes as she mentally prepared herself for what awaited her at home. As soon as they stepped into the Cooper mansion, Beatrix was waiting for them. "Oh my God, I knew it, I knew it!" Beatrix fumed. "You're absolutely ruthless, you know that?" Beatrix charged towards her father, but Melanie quickly stepped in front of her. "Beatrix, please don't freak out," Melanie pleaded with her sister. But it was far too late for that. "Don't freak out? I've been searching for you two for hours. I've been going insane. I was worried sick. I didn't know what else to do, so I just came home and I've been waiting ever since." Beatrix was practically out of breath from worry. "As usual, you're completely overreacting," Brett sneered, causing Beatrix's face to turn crimson with anger. Melanie's stomach was in knots. She could tell Beatrix meant every word, and she felt awful about making her sister worry. "It's okay. I'm okay. Dad was just getting me out of the house for some fresh air." Melanie hoped that she was more convincing now than she had been back at the hotel with Mark. Beatrix narrowed her eyes, looking up at her father as if she could read the truth in his beady little eyes. She wasn't convinced. Melanie looked shaken and tired, and Beatrix suspected there was a reason for that. But Beatrix didn't want to stress her out any more than their father clearly already had. "Okay, Melanie, let's just get you back in bed. You need to rest." Beatrix reached out a hand for her younger sister, glaring up at her father the entire time. She pulled Melanie away from their father and upstairs past Erica Cooper, who had been watching from the landing this entire time. Erica reached out a hand comfortingly towards Melanie, but Beatrix jerked her away, wanting nothing to do with either of their parents. Once the girls were upstairs, Erica remained standing there, searching for answers in Brett's eyes. He stared back at her but remained silent. Erica wanted to say something, but she knew Beatrix was right. Brett had done something with Melanie, and now he was clearly lying about it. Back at the Rose Hotel, Mark DeLillo staggered through the hallway. His head pounded, making it impossible to think or relax. Although he was still not sure what had happened to him, he knew that something was not right. He never would have guessed that he had been slipped 2 different drugs by 2 separate people. Mark adjusted the cuffs on his sleeves as he tried to smooth out his appearance. He couldn't let himself look as bad as he felt. While peering down at the wrinkles on his shirt, he nearly knocked heads with Jake Nevin. "Whoa, watch where you're walking, Mark." Jake hardened at the sight of him, surprised to see him upright and walking around. Mark was way too tired for this. Jake Nevin was the last person he wanted to run into in his current state. He groaned. "Listen, Jake, now is really not a good time to talk business." He flashed Jake a terse smile and stuffed his hands in the front pockets of his pants. Jake stared back at him in momentary shock. What was going on? Why the hell was Mark DeLillo conscious right now? He was supposed to be in his private hotel suite with Mellie. They were supposed to be in a bed together, and Jake was supposed to be catching them in the act at this very moment. Mark was about to walk past him down the hall, but Jake couldn't help himself. "If you're here, where's Mellie?" As soon as the question came out of his mouth, Mark froze. He stopped in his tracks, processing what Jake had just said. Could it be that by Mellie, Jake was referring to Melanie Cooper? Was this some kind of sick plot schemed up by Jake and the Cooper family together? Mark turned slowly, fire in his eyes. His words came out like venom. "What do you mean?" Jake steeled himself, hands clamming up. Nothing. He could feel the anger radiating off of Mark's body. "I was just asking because I saw you earlier, you were drinking a lot. And then you were with some girl. I figured you two were off together somewhere." Not even Jake believed the words coming out of his mouth. Suddenly, Mark stood right in front of him, their faces mere inches apart. "Jake Nevin, you are nothing. You are worthless scum and you make me sick." His words came out sharp, each syllable cutting through the air like a knife. "If I ever catch you on Rose property ever again, I will personally have you removed and it won't be pretty." Jake turned red, unsure how to respond. He could feel his heart thumping inside his chest as he tried to hold his composure. You better hope your grandfather dies soon, because that's the only way you'll ever have even an iota of power in this world. Mark continued. I promise you that. He pushed Jake aside and stalked off towards the elevator. Jake's hands balled up into fists, his skin strained over his knuckles, becoming more tense by the second. He stood there, right where Mark left him, unable to move. Paralyzed with anger, Jake could not accept that his plan had failed. As soon as Mark disappeared behind the elevator doors, Jake pulled out his cell phone and dialed a number. Saibon, hi, listen, the first plan fell through. I want to go along with your other idea. He then lowered his voice, speaking in a hushed tone. I'm going to need you to teach me how to kill someone, and make it look like an accident.